Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Tuesday, the 19th of November, 2024. This is program number 1281 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calixte George Jr. Now, of course, in addition to Radio 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com. We're also streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plates today, it is 452-3046. That's our magic number, 452-3046. We hope that you can call into that when we start taking in calls. As well, you can reach us on WhatsApp. You just have to dial 724-0008. And you can also message in or call in, either one. On that WhatsApp number, and we'll share your exchange with you, with the listening public. Again, that number is 724-0008, 724-0008. Now, some history for today. Back in the year 1805, the Lewis and Clark expedition, and that was led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, reached the Pacific Ocean. And those were the first European Americans to cross the Great West. In the year 1863, United States President Abraham Lincoln delivered his famous Gettysburg Address. And of course, you recall it began by saying 7 years ago. 1942 on this day, Operation Uranus. And that was a Soviet offensive, and that began during the Battle of Stalingrad. And it involved 1 million Soviet soldiers encircling the German Sixth Army. 1969 on this day saw Apollo 12's Charles Conrad and Alan Bean becoming the third and fourth human beings on the moon. And on this day back in 1985, United States President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev met for the first time ever. We want to send out some birthday greetings as well. First to Anika York. Happy birthday to you, Anika. And we do hope that you're having an absolutely wonderful and fantastic birthday celebration. Also to Mr. Robin Scouten. And we're hoping that you're having a fantastic, wonderful birthday as well, Robin. Hope it is a great and enjoyable day for you. Also to Mr. Rossini Marta, happy birthday to you, sir. Hope it's a grand day and a wonderful, wonderful celebration. And also to Mrs. Alita Favre Moise, happy birthday to you. And we hope that you're having a wonderful, wonderful birthday as well. We now move on to our dish of the day. And welcome back to our program for today. And of course, we are in the month of November, and November and November are in fact the rainiest months on average in St. Lucia. It effectively is sort of the peak of our rainy season within the Windward Islands. And so, of course, we have been experiencing what one could say is some almost expected weather in St. Lucia across the across the Eastern Caribbean, from Guadeloupe to Grenada. We've been seeing St. Vincent as well, and of course right here in St. Lucia, lots of rainfall, and of course accompanying that, the impact of some flooding in some regions. We would have, of course, seen even over the weekend, starting off at the Darren Time Cricket Ground, a match being abandoned on Sunday as a result of the inclement weather. Schools, I believe, were closed today over in Grenada as a result of the weather. In many parts of the island, we saw some images of Flooding, I think I saw some coming out of Mark. Of course, that area, Crownlands, Mark, very notorious when it comes to the issue of flooding. It's a perennial issue once there's a significant amount of rainfall. Albeit there have been attempts over the years, many different studies, hydraulic studies done, looking at some of these areas. One of which, in fact, I think after Hurricane Tomas, and we saw the devastation that actually occurred down in the Crownlands, Bexar area. There was, in fact, a very comprehensive study done by a Canadian consulting firm called Dillon, looking into the matter. And one of the recommendations was, in fact, even realigning part of the Mark River. The Mark River is a significant tributary to the main cul-de-sac river. And interestingly enough, what happens is that at the area of Crownlands, the Crownlands Junction, you have two tributaries meeting the main river right in that area. Both one from the east, the Mark, and then another tributary from the Chopin Ridge coming into that point. So it's a real pressure point. And of course, one of the reasons why there's so much flooding in that exact location. And in fact, there was a recommendation to realign part of the Mark River so that it, in fact, meets the cul-de-sac river lower downstream. And so there is, in fact, some relief within that area, which is, of course, already built up. Of course, quite often these realignments come with their own challenges, and sometimes there are places around the world right now that they will, in fact, tell you that you should allow the river to do what it wants. But of course, allowing a river to do what it wants means that you quite often have to be ready to sacrifice a certain amount of land to, in fact, allow it to be quote unquote wild, right? To allow it to meander and overflow its banks. Because that's what rivers do naturally. That's why we have these valley areas, which are formed by this alluvial material, which is being brought down and going over the banks whenever there's a flood and whatnot. Of course, human beings, we want things in an orderly way. We want things to be predictable and controlled, and so that's why, of course, for thousands of years, we've seen different civilizations take on the task of trying to tame rivers and tame floodwaters, whether it may be for control of flooding, as well as for agricultural purposes, irrigation, and of course, even for the purpose of navigation along those rivers. So that has been a recommendation, and there have been instances in the past, I think after Hurricane Debbie, where there were a good number of improvements, if you like, if you want to say the improvements or realignments to the cul-de-sac river to improve the flow and capacity of the river to be able to handle these flood waters. So as to if it's ever going to happen, well, we'll have to wait and see what occurs then, because the reality is many of our settlements are along those floodplains. They're along those valley bottoms, and of course, it's tends to be easier land to develop because it's nice and flat, or for agriculture even. But it is certainly not without its challenges. Also, some flooding in the south of the island. We saw some images coming out of the town, well, the village of Labrie. And Labrie is an interesting one because it's one of the few settlements, traditional settlements in St. Lucia that actually was not placed on a major river. Most of the settlements are along some sort of major waterway, major river. You can think of even Grosley, in fact, remember, was on a wetland with the river coming down, which is where you now have the marina. You in the same, of course, Castries, Ancillary, very major river there, Soufre, Choiseul. I think really only um, Labri and as well Miku were not placed really on a major river, but they were in fact located where they are because of the good bay, the sheltered bays that existed on those settlements in that area. And so it's interesting though that but you do get flash flooding sometimes because it is in a sort of a little basin, and you do see often on issues of those floodwaters coming down quite rapidly when you've got very, very intense rainfall. And so, yes, so even a place like Labrie, albeit it is not synonymous with major flooding issues like what we've seen in places like Ancillary and Dennery, quite so, to maybe a certain extent as well, even Soufre. But yes, certainly they have had their share of the impact of the rainfall. So, still, of course, a matter of concern, and it is a concern to the Water and Sewage Company as well, because they, in fact, have disclosed that the recent heavy rainfall has caused for issues as well with respect to their water supply. Now, remember what we're dealing with in the case of water in St. Lucia. Potable water is effectively sourced from rainfall, which is runoff. It comes runoff, gets into the system, gets into the catchment, and it is being collected. Now, of course, when you see heavy rainfall, it's taking down material, it's taking down soil. So even in instances where you may have good vegetation and good cover, you're still going to have the issue of uh, of um, of soil getting into the water, and the water is gets dirty. Basically, it's very, very brown, and it has very high turbidity. So when that gets into the the intakes now, it leads to lots of different issues. The intakes sometimes get clogged because, of course, it's not just soil. It may be rocks being carried to. It may be other organic material, and that gets into these intakes and leads to lots of different problems. So they have to be cleaned out quite often, and we've got around the island a lot of legacy systems all around places like Canaries and Ancillary and even Soufre, which was a lot of Miku, these gravity fed systems. Sometimes there's not very, in some instances, there's not treatment. Sometimes you only have chlorination going on in those plants. But the issue, of course, it means that as a result of that, when you've got these massive flows of water, it becomes a problem. And so it's not impossible sometimes to deal with, but of course, it means that it comes with additional work and maintenance. And in some instances, you'll even find that the systems you will have to, treat the water even more and chlorinate it even more. And so, of course, that means an added cost to the water utility when you have these kinds of situations. So it's a very fickle type of situation that we find ourselves in. Yes, you want to have enough water, so you don't want you don't want drought conditions, but at the same time you also want to be able to manage, so to speak, the extent and the amount of water. And of a lot of these systems, as I mentioned, they don't have large storage reservoirs, so that eventually the water, the sediment settles, and of course, even so, we've seen the problems with that too, right? Because that was and continues to be a significant issue with respect to the John Compton Dam, the Roseau Reservoir. You would recall requires continuous ongoing desilting to take out a lot of that material that has been accumulating over the years since nearly 30 years now, right? So you have nearly 30 years of silt building up, and of course when you've got major events like a Hurricane Thomas or whatnot, um, those bring large quantities of sediment into these reservoirs. And of course, it cuts down on the capacity of these reservoirs. So it, of course, requires continuous work to be able to manage that. And of course, it has been a big undertaking for the country now to begin taking on this task of desilting, and of course, it then means that you've got to have secondary areas to take that material and to place it somewhere and then let it settle again. And so, of course, it has been a major task and cost, which we still, of course, are paying for on our water bills. It's I think it was placed there as a bit of a part of the tariff. So it is, of course, continuing, and will not be an easy task as a result of that. So let's hope that we can get back to normal soon in that regard. Now, on to the matter of an incident that happened yesterday, and it's a very unfortunate one, of course, in the heart of the city of Castries. And I know lots of people are saying, of course, it really should not matter where an incident of a killing, a homicide occurs, right? Because wherever it occurs, it's happening on our island. It really should be everybody's business, and of course, it therefore should make all of us feel uncomfortable when we hear about a killing or homicide. And that, of course, I think is very important to know, that we should not be thinking, well, it's not our problem, or it's happening somewhere else in the country, and it's far away from us. It's not in our backyard. It's not in our neighborhood. So let's carry on with life. But I think as a result of yesterday's brazen daylight shooting, I think that has raised a lot of concern for a lot of people, because let's face it, the Derek Walcott Square is perhaps the most iconic open space, public space within the city of Castries. It's obviously a place where we gather and congregate when there are major events and festivals, and so when incidents happen in these very open spaces, public spaces, where everybody has access to, and everybody has some sort of connection or memory of, because they may have walked by there last week, or or they remember being part of celebrations there for the Kings, or whatever it may be, right? It, of course, brings forward emotions and real concerns, and so certainly it calls for very strong condemnation, because here we have a situation where one person has been killed, another injured, and goodness knows how people who are around would have been reacting, or hearing these types of, or witnessing this type of brazen acts. So we, of course, want to definitely condemn it to the strongest possible way that we can, and to be really hoping that we can actually ensure that justice is done, justice is served, in this type of situation, because it clearly hurts all of us, right? When these types of actions are happening in any part of St. Lucia, and even more so in a very public space, in a very open space, in broad daylight. It shows a level of callousness that an individual believes that they can in fact get away with such an act, right? That they will believe that in the heart of the city, where you would expect to see police officers not too far away, or you expect that you know that there are cameras around, CCTV. We know that there's a police station on Bridge Street, you know, the police headquarters. All of these things certainly is the reason why, you know, when things like this happen, it certainly raises lots and lots of concern, and rightfully so. So the matter of crime is a very serious one. Of course, just a week before, we actually got an update regarding the major crimes in the country, or are being termed priority offenses. And that actually looked at some very interesting data regarding that. The police pointing out that there was, in fact, an uptick in major crimes during the period of January up to October, so right, a 10-month period for the year 2024. Not all areas were up. Some were, in fact, down. For instance, the number of stolen motor vehicles actually went down slightly from 71 to 68. The number of burglaries has also gone down from 533 to 431. And the number of robberies also down from 211 to 185. Unfortunately, homicides were flat and remained at 67. And remember, as I said, this is up to October of this year. And so they remain flat from 2023 into 2024, still the same number, 67, during that period of time. Narcotics interdiction was up from 251 offenses up to 288 offenses. And you would also recall that there was a special mention by the Royal St. Lucia Police Force that one of the largest drug hauls ever was witnessed. Also, a rise in the number of cases where cocaine was in fact being um, caught, and so that is certainly something of note. The number of drug offenses actually up by a good number, nearly what is that working out to be 37 cases over that period. Now, firearm offenses also very interesting increases there, and perhaps it speaks to the prevalence of firearms in our country at this point in time. And we've seen a considerable rise in firearm offenses. It moved from 191 cases in 2023 up to 284 cases in 2024. That is nearly a 50% increase in firearm offenses. So it is suggesting, of course, I mean, these are cases that are reported, that the police are working on, right? But it clearly shows that we are seeing a lot more firearm cases across the board in St. Lucia. So that certainly is a very telling figure, if there is one, coming out of some of the data from the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Also up, stealing from persons. There was, in fact, an increase there, moving from 174 up to 208. That represents roughly almost 20% increase in those cases. And of course, also of concern, a rise in sexual offenses, moving from 145 in 2023 up to 168 in 2024. So that works out to be about a 15% increase in those cases. So, uh, I mean, some areas seem to be fairly good news in terms of the burglaries and the robberies being down, but certainly in terms of sexual offenses, firearm offenses, and of course, murders still being pretty stable and consistent. Um, that, of course, is something that we would want to know that is actually of great concern to everybody. Now, in terms of where that spread is happening, remember there are three divisions within the Royal St. Lucia Police Force: a northern, a central, and a southern division. And you'd recall maybe back in 2023, there was a lot of concern about the rise in homicides, shootings, what have you, in the VA4 area. And that certainly was seen in terms of the figures. Uh, in 2020, in the Southern Division, there were 9 homicides. That went up to 2021, it went up to 13, and it held into 2022. Same number, 13 homicides. And then it doubled in 2023, right? It went up to 26 homicides in the Southern Division. Thankfully, that has more than, well, it's gone down significantly to 15 homicides this year in the Southern Division. So that's a pretty significant drop in that number. It's pretty much more than halved in that regard. So it's, well, not quite almost, but it's getting to where you definitely want it to be going down and down, hopefully into the next year as well. So that's certainly good news. In fact, where we've seen the most significant increase for the year is actually in the north of the island, the north and the Castries division, the central division. Those are the areas that, in fact, have been very active for the year with respect to homicides. And so there are some clear hotspots which we're witnessing: the Castries area, quite a number there, as well as the Babono area. Those are the areas where you're seeing some very high numbers in terms of homicides. So lots to take in, of course, and let's hope that we can see some good approaches by the police. They have indicated that they're making progress in terms of murder detection rates. Thus far, we have 33% of the cases solved, cases that have come in for this year, with 67% still under investigation. So that's what it looks like at this point, and we'll have to continue some of that analysis perhaps as we go through the week. But we're going to have to end our dish of the day at this time so we can take in our weather report. And of course, that's brought to you the kind compliments of the St. Lucia Met Services.
Thank you very much, Calix. Of course, we wrap up the dish of the day. That's And now, time for the weather report. The weather is made possible with the compliments of Island Style Talent Bar. And now we take a look at the latest weather report as of 12 noon today, the 19th of November, 2024. The forecast for this hour is Shema Joseph. A look at the forecast for St. Lucia, valid for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing between the east and the southeast near 10 miles per hour or 17 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter and variable at times. The weather mostly cloudy with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some areas and isolated thunderstorms. Again, the winds blowing between the east and the southeast near 10 miles per hour or 17 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter and variable at times. And the weather mostly cloudy with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some areas and isolated thunderstorms. So, residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides, you are advised to be extremely vigilant and to exercise extreme caution due to the heightened possibility of occurrence of these hazards. Now, please be guided. Now to the marine forecast for seas in a 25-mile or 40-kilometer radius from St. Lucia. For the Castries Harbor, the high tide will be at 17 minutes before 6 this evening, and the low tide will be at 4 minutes after 1 tonight, well, in the morning. For the Vieux Bay, we are presently experiencing low tide. High tide will be at 10 minutes before 7 tonight. The seas, slight to moderate with the waves 3 to 5 feet, the same as zero point 0.9 to 1.5 meters in open waters. And for the Lesser Antilles, it is light to moderate, well, partly cloudy to cloudy skies with scattered showers, which may be locally heavy, and some isolated thunderstorms. And the tropical weather outlook: light to moderate easterly to southeasterly winds are expected across the eastern Caribbean region during the next couple of days. And very moist and unstable conditions associated with a frontal boundary and a trough system will continue to generate cloudiness with scattered moderate to heavy showers and isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. We're not expecting any tropical cyclone formation over the tropical Atlantic during the next 7 days. And that's good news. But again, the tropical weather outlook: light to moderate easterly to southeasterly winds are expected across the eastern Caribbean region during the next couple of days, and very moist and unstable conditions associated with a frontal boundary and a trough system will continue to generate cloudiness with scattered moderate to heavy showers and isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. Again, remember, residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides, you are advised to be extremely vigilant and to exercise extreme caution due to the heightened possibility of the occurrence of these hazards. That is the official weather report. Thank you, Shema. Join us again in the morning at around 6:30. Our next report from the Met Service is due on the station at that time. The weather was made possible by Island Style Tile and Bath.
Back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Got about 24 minutes to go before the hour of 2 o'clock. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046, 452-3046. And our WhatsApp number, 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Of course, it's International Men's Day today. So we want to send out very best wishes to all the men out there and who are making their contributions, who are doing what they have to do. Quite often men come under lots of pressure for being the cause of a lot of problems in the world. And well, you know, it is uh, also the other reality of it, of course, is that men also are the victims of quite a lot that is not necessarily going right either. So they're under a lot of pressure, and you know, quite often, uh, maybe sometimes the females are a little bit more of the vocal ones, and the men tend to hold it in, and because they want to be men, right? They want to be macho. They want to, you know, give a sense that they've got it all under control. But unfortunately, it's not often that way at all. And in fact, somebody just shared, so a big shout out to Virginia. In fact, she was the one who shared it from RCI, International Men's Day, because 76% of suicides are men, 85% of homeless are men, 70% of homicide victims are men, 40% of domestic abuse victims are men, and 60% of sexual assault victims are men. Are facing lots of challenges. And we've been hearing and speaking about this for a long time, right? In the Caribbean, men in crisis. The A lot of the systems that we have don't necessarily work well for them, and we're seeing major challenges in terms of the education system in our schools and making them more attractive for young men. Let's take another call at this time. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today? Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello?
Hi. Hi. Good afternoon, caller.
Yeah,
Sorry about that. We can hear you
I
now.
said productive international men's day
Ah, thank you very much.
because I don't think some men like the word happy. They think you mean
They don't like the word happy. Why would you think that, caller?
they might think happy means gay,
You think so? I don't.
celebrity.
I don't know. I doubt that.
I,
I doubt that.
I think some men, there are some men they think that way. Happy international men. They you think I gay or what?
No, I doubt that
Yeah.
that is how
But
most
this
people
morning
would
there was a
interpret.
discussion on that on a program I was saying too, and it was like the guy was saying, as Big Slim, like women are celebrated International Women's Day. There's so much done for
Yes.
international, but for men, it's like men are treated like dogs. And I said to him, at the end of the day, who's
Well,
responsible
I
for
don't know
that?
that they're treated like dogs, but maybe they're not necessarily recognized. You know, the
But he said,
importance is.
but he said they're treated like dogs. And my response was, who? At the end of the day, who brought about International Men's Day? A guy, a gentleman from Trinidad in '99 brought about international to um, men's success, men's
That's
achievement, and
interesting, yeah, that
all.
it came out of the Caribbean. Well, like, and we can see that there's a need in the Caribbean,
Yeah, Mr.
certainly.
Trinidadian that brought it about in
Okay, interesting.
1999. So
Mm-hmm.
that's much he felt that men should be celebrated. So men should just continue on that same road.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
same way women go out and celebrate themselves at all times, Mother's Day, these all sorts of things. What's stopping a man from celebrating himself? To what stop men from coming together as a group to celebrate themselves? They can get together, do things. Some time ago, this guy Martin James was trying to put together a men's group together, so they could actually reach men that have problems, those
Mm-hmm.
that are under going through all kinds of problems, those that are on the brink of committing suicide, all of these things. He tried to get that together, but they didn't turn up. They did not turn up. It's like they did not show interest. Then they say, oh, because guys were not the men as the boys were not treated. They're supposed to be hard. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to. But who says so? Just because you were brought up that way, that you still cannot celebrate yourself as a man. You
But
cannot
the other thing too is that even when men do say something, they get condemned, right? They get, so that is the funny thing, Oh, why you get to go on? Oh, you're supposed to be a man. Oh, you're supposed to do, behave a certain way. So the condemnation comes from both the women and the men.
And most times it comes from the men themselves.
I don't know. I think it comes
To me,
from the
sometimes
women
men are the
too. I
ones that
think
really break down the other men like them spirits,
I'm not
you
sure that
see.
that is correct, caller. I think it's coming from all from all sexes. This perpetuating these stereotypes and really keeping this sort of situation
A woman will
in
go to
balance.
another woman and tell her about her problems, and all sorts of things. A man will go to another man and tell him about his problems and things he has to do. And what do you think? You call him a boy. You can, and all
You think
kinds
so,
of names.
caller?
They do. They do. They joke.
So you don't think that? Well, I yes. So perhaps they joke things off, or they don't really necessarily take them
They
quite
don't take it
seriously.
seriously. If a man come and tell you his wife or his woman beat him, what do you think his friends will do?
I don't
They'll
know.
laugh at him.
Well, they might. They might. They might.
They not might. They will.
I don't know.
They
I'm
will.
not sure. I don't know that if that's actually going to be the case in all instances. Maybe not. But I'm also suggesting to you that
Hmm.
I think that kind of treatment will also be meted out to the men by women as well. That, hey, but why, but you're a man, right? What, that's you should be able to deal with it. That sort of attitude is out there, and I think it's also the attitude that sometimes the women themselves too latch on to.
I suppose sometimes it's because a woman like sometimes wants to have a man that is strong by her side.
There you go.
If you have a man every time you cry in it for everything, something. But yeah, come on, not that
There you
strong.
go. There you go. so so it's, again, it comes to that same idea that the man is the one that's supposed to be strong. The man is the one that's supposed to fix all the problems. The man is the one that is, um, even if he's right, he's still not supposed to.
But
um,
I,
I don't know. I think it's a lot of these things that
but
are
women,
perpetuated by
but what
both
about when you have
sexes.
women that actually stand by them to push them to get further and things? Sometimes they have the women behind them pushing them, but still, they still that it doesn't make a difference. They have
Mm,
this attitude, and they don't want. At the end of the day, who should celebrate oneself but they themselves? You can't wait on somebody to celebrate you. Sometimes you too have to say, look, I am special. I am this, and celebrate yourself also. Why blame women for you not being celebrated? Because that's what they're saying. That so much is done for women. For International Women's Day, so much is done for women
hmm
at Mother's Day and all of these things. But it's the women themselves that are doing it.
mm.
They're the ones doing it. So why can't the men do it too? That's what I'm
Well, I
saying.
think I think what has happened is that there has generally been, for some time now, uh, how should I put it? There are a lot of specialized programs
Hmm.
for women, right?
Yeah.
And I think quite often, in fact, remember we've now changed it to gender affairs. It used to be women's affairs, right? But
Hmm.
quite often the emphasis was, well, how do you rebalance? How do you ensure that women get their fair opportunities? That women are treated equally? That they're being on matters like, let's say, equal pay,
Hmm.
equal treatment in the workforce. And as a result of that, there has been a large system of institutionalized support for women and
Hmm.
women's issues, but we have not really had the same with respect to men. And even when it's brought up, sometimes the attitude is, but men are okay, right? Men have always been, men are the ones who've benefited for hundreds, thousands of years. So why should there be anything special for men? So I think
Yeah.
there's still that kind of attitude that look, men should sort of fend for themselves. And let's face
Okay.
it, we see. I mean, like I said, in some of the data, men are the ones who are more likely to, well, I guess you could say self-destruct, whether it's through suicide, whether it's through violent behavior. People will say, well, women make very well attempt to commit suicide more, but the men are the ones, because they're more able to kill themselves. you know,
Yeah.
very morbid sense, but that's the reality of it. So they're more successful
Now,
in
since
it.
you talk about the sexual offenses, some time ago I asked a police officer,
Hmm.
don't you think that women should have like this what is that, paper spray on them in the bags when they're going out, when
Hmm.
they come in from work? I asked him that. I asked him about. He said, well, he think it should be right. It's right that legislation should be passed for women to walk with the paper spray and things like that in their bag.
Hmm.
And then I was speaking to another guy, and he's saying to me, "Oh, if women are supposed to have paper spray, then men are supposed to have that." But why? Because a woman needs paper spray or even a taser to
But why
protect.
shouldn't the men have it as well?
Come on. Well,
Why?
it's,
Also,
men are supposed to
so
be
you were saying
strong.
that you think that that only women should have pepper spray?
To protect themselves. Because come on, how a woman coming from work, a young woman coming from small size, whatever she's coming from work, a guy grab her
But you may
trying to
have
raise.
small men too, caller. They may need,
But
they
I
may
mean,
need
even though a
protection.
men, it's said men are supposed to be stronger than women. So tell me, even though a man's small, that doesn't mean he's not strong.
Well, I don't know that we could, in all fairness, legislate something only for women, so that only women can carry pepper spray. I
But
don't
it
know.
may,
I think, I mean, if you're going to legalize it, you're going to legalize it across the board, right?
no, you'll have
Uh,
to legalize it for women because it's men that are raping women, women not raping men.
well, yeah, but it's not. You don't know that for sure. That it's only one way. But the other thing too is that, yes, okay, in the majority, let's say that as the case, but is pepper spray only for that kind of defense? Is that what you're saying? That, I mean, that
What I was saying,
there's no instance where perhaps a man might be attacked and he decides to utilize pepper spray in his self defense.
yes, he can, I suppose maybe, well, you have those guys now that really not guys now anymore. They
Well,
are
no, but
still, they can.
regardless of, no, no, caller, regardless of
Mhm.
how they decide to identify themselves or orientation or whatnot, I'm
Mhm.
just saying that if you're having this as a legal form of something that one could carry, then
Mhm.
I think you can't necessarily say that it should only be for women.
But wouldn't a guy quicker be walking for a gun, a knife or
Yeah,
something on him to
but
defend
wait,
himself?
but call I mean, for a gun, it has to be legal, right? So it has to be
Yeah.
licensed. So, and women can get guns too. So it's not to say that women
Yeah, I
are not.
know women can
So
get guns, so they can get licensed guns, and it's not any woman or any man that they will handle a licensed gun too.
right,
But at the end of the day, a woman still needs something to protect herself when she is walking the street because, like they just said,
and like
sexual
I said, I
offense.
agree with you. I have no problem with
Hmm.
women having the opportunity to have pepper spray, but I'm just saying it can't just be for women only. That's what I'm saying. It you would have to implement it for everybody, so that if a
well,
man wants to have pepper spray as well, I mean, truth
well,
be told, well, some men have bags, or whatever, so they might, whatever, man bag.
well,
But
I heard the
it is
police officer did agree with me that I think it should women should be given that opportunity to have the paper spray, to protect themselves. Especially sometimes you come in from work late at night.
mhm.
Sometimes you maybe even you can even be driving alone, and your
I
car
think
just have to stop somewhere that is dark and someone can just attack you. This paper is simple. You just pull that out and spray, whereby a guy might, I mean, some guys are very tough.
I think with all of these things, as with any type of instrument that can cause harm,
Hmm.
it needs to be there needs to be some level of regulation. right? So I don't know how the approach is necessarily. Is it something that you can just go and buy at any store or whatnot? But I think people who do have it, they should know how to use it safely and responsibly, so that it's not something that you don't want a situation where now wives are now using pepper spray on their husbands or something like that. You get what I'm saying, right? It needs to be something that is clearly people understand the purpose of it. People understand that it has impacts. It's for okay. You want to use it in the case of self defense, perfectly fine. So it has to be um, properly understood. So I don't know if that requires any kind of special training. I don't know. I'm just saying that
I suppose
or
then
if it's
maybe
something
you
that
got
is
have
just
guidelines as to how to use it. No, you
yeah.
said wives. You don't want wives using it on their husbands.
Well, you don't
No,
want it
that
to be used irresponsibly by anybody,
no.
right?
But
If you don't want a criminal to be start using pepper spray, for example,
no, that's
yeah,
and I
you
mean
follow.
they have data for this on criminals and all of these things, so you would know who you should sell it to, who you shouldn't sell it to. But you said even about the wives and husbands. But if you have a woman have an abusive husband that beats her
Oh no,
on
and I would think yeah, in self defense certainly, I think it's
yeah
something that you can
that
um it would be justifiable for self defense, certainly, certainly.
mhm.
But I'm
And
just
I
saying
have
that it has again, it's how people utilize these instruments because they can be very look at the situation that we're in right now with guns, unfortunately, right?
mhm, yeah
And the number of homicides we're seeing, the number of cases that we're seeing, and
this
it's because of the availability, the prevalence of it in
and this I
you
have
know.
a problem with too. Because because like yesterday, I'm wondering where were the police because I'm in a place like the square there, the Record Square. People are there frequently. I just heard
They're
useless,
quite often parking traffic police around, making rounds, making sure that
and
people
they were not there yesterday.
I don't know. I really don't know, caller. I don't
Because
know who
I know
was there
the
and how quickly the response was, but it is to me pretty telling that somebody can believe. I mean, and we did see some images coming out, people some images of the individual, I think maybe from CCTV footage on a
yeah.
bike. And I think there was even suggestion of the route of escape that he was using. But it's very concerning. I'm hopeful, of course, that the police are already trying their very best
And it was
to
so
apprehend
close
the
because
individual.
police head police headquarters, I think, just a little higher up from the
Yeah,
square
I
there.
mean,
Come
yeah.
on, and then I heard the police officer Lucius Small said that they would be intensifying them in the back roads, on the
But
main roads.
part of the problem that we have, caller, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
have this again. It's the availability of some of these things, right? We have a plethora. The individual apparently was escaping on some sort of a scooter or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the issues with respect to how these things are coming into the island
Yeah.
illegally. So we've I mean, let's face it, the police are trying. The police are engaged in traffic stops. I mean, passed through one maybe over the weekend at some point on the chaussee. That
Mm.
so we know that those are the things that I think definitely need to be intensified because there is too much availability of the resources to commit those kind of crimes and for people to believe that they can get away, right? That's what we have a significant problem with.
But the patrolling, there should be a lot more patrolling. That's the thing. They keep on saying that. The police keep on saying they're patrolling. They're intensifying this and they're intensifying that. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a short while. Like sometimes you see a police there, and like what somebody was
But
just telling me, they pass the stop police on his phone, texting, like he just there like a prop.
hmm,
I see they're texting. Come on, you should be there, vigilant, watching what's going on. Thing, because don't tell me around that time.
but to
It's,
respond to, and again, the big question about these types of situations, Scholar, to be able to respond to them in quick time
mm-hmm,
means that you have to have one, the eyes on the ground, whether through CCTV, so you
mm-hmm.
can track, you can see where individuals are heading, you know, drones, if that helps as well, perhaps, and
But
that
when they
has to
have
be
all
able
those
to be
things,
deployed very quickly. I'm just talking about there's a process, right?
mm-hmm,
Then because even if you are, let's say, um, normally you have a police officer or police officers in the square, and they hear a situation, they have to be able to call it in,
Mhm.
You know, there have to be other units, people available to be able to respond in quick time,
Mhm.
in real time, right? So it's not
Yes.
something that, if we are really going to make a difference in that, I mean, do we have a proper command center that can handle these types of scenarios?
Mhm.
Right. So I think these are some of the things that, we have to, because it's great to have the vehicles, right? But
Yes.
how do you now deploy them? How do you now ensure that they can respond in a certain way, in a coordinated manner, right?
Mhm.
Do we have training and scenarios as to how those things are dealt with, within hotspots like the city, for example, right?
But I'm sure they're training all of this. What they're training them for? Not for all of these same things.
Well, Carla, I mean, with the system we have right now, I think is what, 6 months of training, right?
I
Six
think
months.
so.
It's
Yes.
about that 6 months of training that
Okay.
our
They have a
police
group that
officers.
were there for 2 years.
Oh, I don't know about that one,
For me,
but
I
I
heard
think
that there was
normally
a
the
group.
the normal period for training coming into the force is about, 6 months. If it's 2 years now, then that's quite great in some respects, because there's a lot of stuff that, of course, police officers have to, learn. Of course, you have to learn on the job too, so you've got to have continuous training opportunities as well. But I'm saying that all of these, in terms of, scenarios and working some of these things out, and of course having those type of surveillance and intelligence resources to be able to respond,
Mm.
is part of, it has to be part of whatever solution we're working on. Yeah, because,
Yeah.
otherwise, I mean, a criminal can. I honestly believe that this is something that he could get away with. Seems to be very, very, very telling. Very,
And
very
maybe they
telling.
should start watching some of those real there are some police programs on from coming from this case. What do you call them? Police files
CSI,
or
crime scene investigation.
I mean, I think some of them should be watching that too.
Well, I'm
Some
sure.
of them should watch, but because when you watch a lot of what's going on, I think if some of them practice that,
But the
uh,
resources to call it, right? The resources to be able to make those things happen. I mean, the way these things, you see some of these things, CSI Miami and wherever it's coming from,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
how the forensic lab and the forensic experts have all this stuff
You have the
that can
profiler,
respond
you
to.
can the profilers that can just go on a scene and tell
Yeah,
you what
yeah,
the person,
yeah,
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 all of
yeah.
those things. Maybe yeah. Come on,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
tough.
obviously, it's different scenarios. Miami, 5 million people. St. Lucia, 172,000. You may think that it should be easier to manage, but you still have to have some basic, things that you've got to have, to be able to make the difference. So yeah,
But as the chief of police said, it's not numbers, it's efficiency
that's
in
correct.
how you deploy your men.
Agreed.
And I hope he did that actually, because he said so. It's not the numbers, it's the efficiency and how they are deployed to get things done.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
maybe that has not been worked on to a T yet, and maybe that's what they're working out still. That's
Yeah.
why we're not really
And
getting.
how it's managed, right?
Yeah.
How are you, managing your resources on the ground? I mean, how do they deal? These are real time issues. Crime is a real time problem, eh? And I mean,
Yeah.
yes, you have your investigators who are going to go back and do the follow up now to play catch up, right? But
Yeah.
you definitely do need to be able to, ensure that you can have response in quick time, and
I'm
that's
just
not
hoping
easy.
that we will see an end to this somehow, some way things will work out because these are too many young lives that are being lost. There's going to be so many children that do not have a father in it. There's a lot of those young guys on the 30 have children. Come on, most of them have children. Some have two, some have three. Who is going to be there to father them? Sometimes the guy who maybe will be there to father them
Mhm.
might, abuse them. They might end up finding themselves in the same thing as their father. And I don't think those guys are thinking about all of these things, the impact of the life they choose to live, what it can do to others, the
Yeah.
children, the siblings, and all of these things. And I don't know. I see the one in V4 is working with Priscilla and everything. I'm hoping somehow they can it can reach other places too to at least make a difference in the lives
Hmm.
of those young guys because it cannot keep on happening like that. Too many of them. Because I have nephews. I have my little grandson, but he's not here in the States, and to just figure out my brothers. And
You
you
know,
have to
and
think,
caller, I really wish to. I
mm-hmm,
mean, I know there have been some attempts to bring in psychologists into the Bodley Correctional Facility, but
mm-hmm,
I really wish we could also begin getting some criminologists and
mm-hmm,
individuals in that to me the Bodley Correctional Facility needs a little bit of a communications unit as well to begin telling some of the stories as
mm-hmm.
of
Because there
in
are those inside
what
there that can be changed. They
can be
can.
changed, but we have to understand why is it happening. What is going on. Even in terms of understanding the patterns of the crime and how it's all connected, right?
Mm-hmm,
Well, I'm saying all crime is connected, but I'm just saying that some of them are connected,
mm-hmm,
and how can you potentially predict what's going to happen next? Who's going to
yes.
retaliate? And so therefore, where's the risk? Are we doing that
Mm-hmm.
kind of analysis to and to figure out what is potentially going to happen? And I mean, it's not a simple thing. We know that. I mean, crime is a major
Yes,
problem
yes.
all around the world. We're seeing rising crime levels, but it's and maybe this is just the nature of to some degree and the issues of
That's
progress.
why. That's why
But
I'm hoping that some of the ones we have up in the United States that are involved in these things that they have their papers because I just listened to the news like yesterday that I mean President Trump has already said that he's going to have a I call that um what's I don't remember the name thing emergency state of emergency
oh,
in
really? He's gonna have a
yes
state of
in
emergency.
order for the mass deportation.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, because
I
you
haven't heard
need
that
to
one
get
yet, but
rid
that's
of all of these people so he's going to have
so
a
he can
state of
call out the National Guard.
yes to get
Yes.
them and just
Okay.
get rid of them out. So I'm hoping that the ones we have up there have that found themselves
Well,
dead that they
remember
still
I
have.
think we had a gang here called Deportees once, wasn't it? Or something of the sort. Yeah. So it's a real issue you're raising.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. That how we're going to be able to tackle that um, as a country is something that I think we have to give some thought to
And
that reality.
before I leave, you're talking. We're talking about our roads, our roads, how bad they are, the potholes, and all of these things.
Okay.
I was listening. Do you know the guy Rod Stewart?
Rob Stewart.
Rod Stewart, the singer.
Oh no, not very well.
Rod Stewart, a rock singer, rock artist, a British rock singer.
Uh huh.
He has lots and lots of songs. Right now he's 79 years old.
Okay.
But he had 5 cars. He lives in England. 5 cars. He's three Ferraris and 2 Italian mix. And do you know he sold them? You know the reason why he sold all of them? He said England roads have too many potholes. Like it's forever, and nothing is being done about the roads in England. The potholes are so bad. So yeah, just because he said he actually took his own money, his millions,
Hmm.
to fix roads. You buy the thing and just
Wow.
where he
Okay.
lives. And yet nothing is being done. So the best he could have done was to sell all his cars because he said, why have all these cars so expensive? And then the roads are destroying it.
Hmm.
So he had to sell all of them and then buy, something that can navigate the roads better for him.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess some people might tell you in England they might be able to take the train instead. So, all right, caller, have a good
All
one.
right. Take
Take
care.
care. All the best.
Bye.
And we're going to have to put an end here at this point to the program. We do thank you for joining us and listening in. We'll be back again tomorrow, God willing, for another one of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calixte Jr., saying goodbye.